Welcome to The Explainer. All right, today we're digging into a new protocol called ZYRO Hive, and what it's designed to do is solve one of the biggest and honestly most expensive hidden problems in our global infrastructure. So let's just kick things off with a number that's, well, it's pretty hard to wrap your head around. $7 trillion. That's the estimated scale of capital that's currently stranded or just wasted inside our global infrastructure. So what is that really? Well, you can think of it as the cost of fragmentation. It's like a hidden tax we're all paying because our most critical systems, from energy grids to data centers, they just don't talk to each other, not effectively anyway. Okay, so let's really dive into this whole hidden tax idea. Where on earth does all this massive waste actually come from? Well, the root cause is fragmentation. I mean, think about it. You've got power plants, utilities, data centers. They're all pretty much operating in their own little bubbles. They spend billions on these isolated compliance permits for things like water and emissions. And because they're all silent systems, it leads to this huge defensive spending, stranded resources, and yeah, those clogged interconnection queues we hear about all the time for new energy projects. And this visualizes the core dilemma just perfectly. You've got the grid's air traffic controller, that's the Regional Transmission Organization, or RTO. They're the only ones who can see the entire system. They know exactly where the grid is stressed and where value's just being left on the table. But here's the catch. They don't own the assets. They don't control the capital. They can see the whole board, but they're not allowed to move the pieces. So, how do you fix a problem that's all about fragmentation? You don't go out and buy a new product. Instead, you introduce a whole new set of rules for everyone to play by. And the solution really kicks off with this concept called grid point completion. All it is really is a way to get all those separate, siloed obligations, the water permits, the emissions offsets, the community benefits, to actually work together to solve a much larger problem, like, say, stabilizing a specific point on the energy grid. This coordination is made possible by a protocol called ZYRO Hive. Now, this isn't some massive central database. Nope. Instead, it creates what's called a federated living twin, which is basically a shared live map of the grid's needs and all the resources available to meet them. And the key part, every participant keeps total control over their own data. So this is the fundamental shift we're talking about. We're moving from the old way of doing things with silent, defensive systems where capital just gets stranded to a new way where this federated twin creates visibility. It coordinates value and allows all that stranded capital to be recomposed or basically rebuilt into useful, valuable circuits. Okay, but I'm sure this raises a big question for you. Who pays for all this? How do you even get a system like this off the ground, especially when you're trying to coordinate between so many different powerful players? Well, the model is actually designed to be completely risk-free for the grid operator. It's a pretty slick four-step process. First, the RTO puts up a retainer to ignite a discovery simulation. This basically reveals where all that capital is stranded. Second, the partners who stand to benefit, like utilities and data centers, they form a legal entity. Third, they all pool some small fees together. And fourth, that pool fully reimburses the RTO's initial investment. So here's the crucial point, the real takeaway from that. The RTO, the entity that kicks the whole thing off, has a net cost of zero. They get all their money back. But in return, they gain this powerful new intelligence tool and permanent access to a living map of their grid. Pretty good deal. But, this whole system really hinges on one big assumption, that these fierce competitors will actually be willing to cooperate and share data. I mean, that's a big ask. So how does the protocol guarantee that's going to happen? It's actually genius. The protocol turns this whole thing into a game where the rules are just stacked in favor of cooperation. It's really simple. If you share high-quality data about your needs and resources, you build a good reputation. That reputation attracts partners, which helps you complete valuable circuits and get a return. But if you hoard your data, you effectively become invisible to the network. No one can partner with you, and your capital just stays stranded. So in this system, collaboration isn't just some nice-to-have, feel-good idea. It actually becomes the only logical, rational way to win the game. Hoarding information literally becomes more expensive than sharing it. Now, this might all sound like a really neat theory, right? But a simulation that was run in Virginia, using only publicly available data, showed just how powerful this approach can be out in the real world. And right off the bat, remember, without any private corporate data at all, The simulation identified a baseline of $150 million in stranded capital just sitting there, waiting to be coordinated. And that was considered the absolute floor, the bare minimum. And that was just the start. The simulation also mapped out $72 billion in trapped economic value from the local workforce. It identified over $4 billion in spending from a key partner that could anchor new projects. It even pinpointed a specific $687 million circuit that could be created just by aligning a data center's water needs with a local watershed restoration project. Incredible. The key takeaway from that test case is really simple, but it's powerful. The underlying structure for creating all this value, the geometry as they call it already exists. It's not something you have to invent from scratch, you just have to make it visible. So, what does this all mean for the future of our infrastructure? What's the really big picture here? Well, the core idea is a fundamental shift in how we think. We have to move away from this old model of individual companies just buying their own siloed defensive products. The future is about co-building an intelligent, cooperative commons that benefits everyone who decides to participate. And this leaves us with one final and I think pretty provocative question. The source material makes it crystal clear that the money is already there. The high-level intelligence to see the problems, that already exists too. The only thing missing is a shared framework for coordination. So the question isn't really about resources or technology, it's about us. Are we finally ready to start building it together?